Hello and welcome to Mrs. B History. In today's lesson we're diving into one of the most intriguing events before the Norman Conquest, Harold Godwinson's embassy to Normandy in 1064. We'll uncover what happened, explore contrasting Anglo-Saxon and Norman interpretations, and see why this episode became such an important part of William's claim to the English throne. Edward the Confessor had ruled from 1042. And as we've explored in an earlier video on the Godwin family, during this time the Godwins had risen to prominence, with Harold taking over from his father as the most important person in England after the king when he became the Earl of Wessex. This video explores one particular embassy when Edward the Confessor asked Harold to carry out on his behalf. The year is 1064 and King Edward the Confessor is aging and still childless. He asked Harold Godwinson, effectively his deputy and his trusted, loyal and influential advisor, to go on an embassy to Normandy. This meant that he had entrusted Harold to represent him personally on his visit. It also shows that England and Normandy did have a close relationship at this time. What we still don't fully know is what the embassy was actually about. Historians still debate it to this day, with both Normans and the English having completely different views on the aims. Harold set sail across the Channel, but the weather turned bad. A violent storm blew his ship off course and he landed by mistake as Ponthieu, not in Normandy. This was a small country between Normandy and Flanders. Here, Count Guy of Ponthieu captured him, possibly hoping for a ransom or some political advantage. When William of Normandy heard of this, he demanded Harold's release, showing early signs of his authority and power, and also creating a situation where Harold would have felt in debt to him. William welcomed Harold to his court and treated him as an honoured guest. Over several weeks, Harold joined William on 2 military expeditions, helping him to subdue rebellious regions in Brittany. William rewarded Harold with lavish gifts, including fine weapons, chainmail and helmets, the kinds given to knights and loyal followers. Symbolically, this may have looked like Harold was accepting William as his lord, a bond of loyalty in Norman custom. At some point during the visit, Harold gave William a message from King Edward, but no source tells us exactly what was said. Some historians think Edward asked Harold to confirm William as his successor. Others believe it had nothing to do with the throne at all. Before returning home, Harold swore an oath to William on 2 sacred relics. The Norman version is depicted in the Bayeux tapestry and shows Harold standing beside holy caskets, his hands raised in promise. Alongside other later chronicles, they state that Edward had sent Harold to promise William the throne on his death, and that Harold had also pledged on oath to support William's claim to the throne after Edward's death, effectively becoming William's vassal. This meant that when Harold later took the crown himself in 1066, the oath he had sworn was broken, meaning that Harold had broken his promise and divine law. This became central to William's justification for his invasion, as he painted Harold as a perjurer and an oath-breaker, making William's invasion appear both righteous and God-sanctioned. However, the Anglo-Saxon perspective is quite different. According to English sources, Harold's true mission was to recover 2 hostages, his brother Wulfnoth and his nephew Hakon, both of whom were being kept in Normandy. In this version, Harold did not swear allegiance to William, but he may have made a diplomatic or friendship oath. His priority was his family and not the Norman succession. The 2 versions couldn't be more different, and each had its own purpose. The Normans used the story to strengthen William's claim. The Anglo-Saxons used it to defend Harold's reputation. This difference reminds us that historical evidence can be biased, and that the Bayeux tapestry is not a neutral source, but Norman propaganda. Harold's embassy mattered for several reasons. It proved Harold was Edward's most trusted advisor, chosen for a mission of high importance. It highlighted England's diplomatic ties with Normandy long before 1066. It became a cornerstone of Norman propaganda. William used it to portray Harold as a traitor who broke a sacred oath, justifying the invasion and the crown seizure. Whether it was about hostages or succession, Harold's embassy to Normandy set the stage for the events of 1066 and was crucial. When Harold became king after Edward's death, William claimed betrayal, transforming this diplomatic visit into a cause for conquest. By 1066, the personal had become political, and the clash of oaths and ambition led to the Battle of Hastings. With the Pope believing that Harold had broken his oath, he put his support behind William, Duke of Normandy. In your Edexcel exams, be ready to discuss both interpretations of Harold's embassy and explain why it was significant. Use it to show how claims to the throne and propaganda shaped the Norman invasion. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more lessons here on Mrs. B History.